Part 10. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 91. When Qianwan came back, she came to Han Qian's rescue. She took Yan Qingqing to live in her small apartment. When Yan Qingqing left, she looked at Wen Nuan and spoke. "This is not the first time, and it won't be the last time, Wen Zhuiying, just wait for me." Nuan held Han Qian's arm, leaning half of his body on Han Qian's body, squinting at Yan Qingqing and smiling. "Bye, let's go home and have sex with my ex-husband. Let Han Qian run a red light." "Wen Zhuiying, you are really evil." The driver called was a woman who didn't like to talk much. She put the small electric car in the trunk and drove Han Qian and Nuan home safely. After getting off the car, the checkout was twice as expensive as taking a taxi. Han Qian was a little worried about his wallet. When the driver was there, Wen Nuan was still holding Han Qian's arm. When the two entered the elevator, they instantly let go of Han Qian and kept a long distance apart. After returning home, Wen Nuan kicked off his shoes and went upstairs to rest. Qian stood on the stairs and shouted to Wen Nuan if he wanted something warm to drink. "No need, go feed your fox sister, don't talk to me." "Where did I recruit you?" "I don't know. I want to go." "What about feeding at noon?" Doesn't that mean he doesn't want Yan Qingqing to continue rubbing her face? He was fine just now, but he suddenly became angry. When he returned to the room after taking a shower, Han Qian stood at the door and sighed. Looking at the warmth lying on the tatami, Han Qian could not say anything. "Ignore me and sleep in my room again? Can you please stop?" After saying this, Wen Nuan stood up suddenly, sat on the tatami and roared at Han Qian. "I did it? You said I did it? You and Yan Qingqing have already fed you, and you say I did it? Before you pay me back, I will not allow you to kiss me with other women to disgust me. Han Qian, let me tell you, I am the creditor, I am the mistress of this family, I can sleep wherever I want. Do you believe what she says? It's not like she has no hands. Why should I feed her? In your eyes, am I such a flirt? Where do you sleep? Where is your quilt? I sleep wherever I want. You and I don't flirt, but you can't help Yan Hu hooking up. She has big breasts, a thin waist and can talk. You have been saying that I have small breasts, small breasts, small breasts. Han Qian and you fought hard." Wen Nuan stood up and pounced directly on Han Qian. The next second, the scene was frozen, with his warm and slender legs clamped around Han Qian's waist, his hands around Han Qian's neck, and Han Qian's hands happened to be resting on his buttocks. Both of them were stunned. They didn't expect that the result would be such a tacit understanding. Wen Nuan hugged Han Qian's neck, narrowed his eyes and laughed softly. "Is it easy to touch?" Han Qian nodded and said seriously. "It's quite meaty." Then the warm head continued to dilate in the pupils. Boom! Han Qian's head was hit so hard that he felt dizzy. He put down the warmth and covered his head and shouted. "You iron-headed kid, how many times have you hit me with your head? It hurts." Wen Nuan covered his head with his hands and returned to the tatami, pulled Han Qian's quilt to cover him, and whispered. "Why should I bump into you if it doesn't hurt you? You're a gangster, a villain, a pervert, don't sleep with me at night." Han Qian's temper also rose. He took off his pajamas and went to bed. Looking at the warm figure, he still had a little fantasy in his heart, but now it's gone, not at all. This girl's forehead is really not ordinary hard. It was only 9 o'clock when she looked at her mobile phone. Han Qian couldn't sleep. Nuan was watching an unknown movie on her mobile phone. It was foreign and could not be understood. Han Qian's English was extremely bad and he listened in a daze. Noisy English, Han Qian, who was lying on his side, closed his eyes unconsciously. Just when he felt that he was about to fall asleep, Wen Nuan suddenly got up, rested his chin on Han Qian's shoulder, and whispered. Are you really going to see Tu Xiao tomorrow? You don't plan to work at Glory for the rest of your life, do you? Yan Qingqing also works for Glory. Even if she treats you well, it's not a long-term solution. Han Qian turned over, but Wen Nuan didn't react. He hit Han Qian's chest with his chin. The posture of the two became more ambiguous. Wen didn't seem to want to get up. Han Qian reached out and touched Wen's head and whispered softly. Road. I'm really going to see Tu Xiao tomorrow. You don't need to ask Tu Kun out. Don't involve the child. As for my future, let's wait until you become Chang Xiang's master. Has Lin Zongheng really given up on you? Wen Nuan took Han Qian's hand away, sat on the tatami with the quilt in his arms, held his little fists and spoke with pride on his face. I called his dad and told him that I was married. Don't let Lin Zongheng come over and disturb my life. Also, I didn't date Xiao Tukun, it was Xiao Tukun who dated me. We can't get along. This little girl seems to be helping you, right? I'm not feeling well and I can't tell you, but she goes to school obediently. Well, it's okay for you to do this, but you have to think about the consequences. Since the Lin family doesn't get the shares in your hands, they may try to kick you out of the company. If you encounter any trouble, tell me as soon as possible and solve it. I'll go talk to my parents now. My parents? Not your parents, we are divorced. Is my creditor's mother okay? Are you still sleeping? If you don't sleep under the quilt, pay me back. After saying that, Wen Nuan lay down directly, with a pair of slender legs on Han Qian's belly. He covered his head with the quilt and giggled in the bed. Han Qian was also amused by Wen's appearance and whispered, Isn't it stupid? Wen Nuan stood up again, and this time her face was very close to Han Qian. Han Qian could feel Wen's breath. When his mind was filled with beautiful fantasies, Wen suddenly spoke. Han Qian, I just discovered that you had an acne, so I squeezed it for you. Of course, you have to thank me for popping your acne. You go buy me an ice cream, that little pacifier will do. Get out. Han Qian pushed Wen away directly, turned over, and went to sleep. Wen was behind him, humming like a cat. He kicked Han Qian for a while, stretched out his hand to pinch Han Qian's back, and came over for 10 seconds. After a few minutes, Han Qian couldn't help it anymore, sat up and frowned. Let's go downstairs together, you eat 1, I'll eat 4, no grabbing. Okay. He was warm and diligent, so he stood up and put on his pajamas jacket, and threw Han Qian's pajamas over at the same time. Under the street lights in the community, Han Qian held 4 small pacifier ice cream sticks in his hand, and held an ice cream with strawberry flavor in his warm mouth. He was reluctant to eat it all in one breath, and held it in his mouth. It was cold. Han Qian, look. Wen Nuan pointed at the door of the community and suddenly spoke. When Han Qian turned his head curiously, he knew that he had been fooled. The pacifier in his hand was missing another one. Han Qian turned his head and glared at Wen, and then stuffed all 3 of them into his mouth in one go. This time, before he could rub his head, warm hands had already pressed on his temples and kneaded them gently. Aren't you stupid? It's so cold. Why don't you just throw it away? This time the ice also hit his head. Han Qian frowned and said in pain. Then I give you a chance to find fault with me? Why do you think you're eating something cold if you have a stomachache? Spend money to make trouble. It's only 50 cents. My sister can still afford it. Han Qian, do you want to have a drink with me? My sister will buy it for you. I don't drink it, I don't like it. Han Qian shook his head and refused. He raised his hand and grabbed one of Wen Nuan's hands and held it in his hand. Wen Nuan didn't struggle and jumped up and down while eating the popsicle. After finishing the second popsicle, Wen turned his head and said softly. Han Qian, I asked my mother. She said it's not that you don't eat crabs. It's because you weren't used to eating crabs when you were a child. Were crabs expensive when you were a child? Han Qian smiled and shook his head. It's not expensive. It's affordable for one meal, but not cheap if you eat it every day. If you haven't tried it, you don't know the taste. If you don't know the taste, you won't be greedy or think about it. Was your family very poor when you were a child? Wen Nuan's words were very straightforward, and Han Qian knew that she was just curious, so he spoke softly. Not poor, but not rich either. Mom's health is not good, and the old man is the only one making money in the family. I just don't want him to be too tired. You don't even eat what others give you. Except for your parents, no one will give it to you every day. Wen Nuan broke away from Han Qian's hand, turned around and ran away. Not long after, he came back with 2 bottles of drinks in his arms, smiling innocently at Han Qian. It's okay, my sister will give it to you later. Han Qian stretched out his hand and pinched his warm nose, reached out and took the iced Coke, and said with a smile. Don't even think about drinking ice anymore. Ouch. My stomach hurts. Wen Nuan suddenly squatted on the ground. When she looked up again, she saw Han Qian squatting in front of her. Wen stood up and kicked Han Qian's butt, smiling sweetly. Just kidding. As a result, Wen Nuan's stomach really hurt that night. Han Qian heated up porridge for her and prepared a towel heated with a cup of boiling water for Wen to put on her belly. Wen sipped and whispered. Han Qian, do you hate me if I cause you trouble? I hate it, but I can't help it. You are my creditor. In ancient times, you were the landlord, and I am the landlord's long-term employee. One day, the long-term labor union will turn over and become a landlord. Don't think about it. There won't be that day. I just counted it and you don't seem to be able to pay it off. Wen Bangxian. It's fairy Wen. Yan Qingqing has fallen in love with you. Hey, she's blind at a young age. I won't let her go astray. Wen Nuan sat at the dining table holding a bowl, looking like someone who had come over. Han Qian shook his head and smiled helplessly, looking at the information on the computer. After finishing the meal, Wen put down his bowl and sat next to Han Qian, leaning against Han Qian with his back. On his arm, he sighed. I know you better than she does. I know how to control you. She doesn't know that, right? Brother. Han Qian shuddered. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 92. The silver grey Volvo S90 was parked in the underground garage, and Yan Qingqing threw the key to Han Qian. This car has traveled less than 500 kilometers. The company has a Buick specially used to pick up people. This car has been left here and has not been moved. It is more troublesome to transfer the ownership of the company's car. Whether you drive it yourself or something else, you can take care of it yourself. That would be fine, but let me tell you, the company just has an idle car like this. If you give it away, you won't have a car in the future. Looking at the dusty car, Han Qian felt a little distressed. After 500 kilometers, isn't this a new car? Capitalists are so wasteful. Han Qian opened the cab door and waved to Yan Qingqing. As a small clerk, it's better for me to squeeze into the bus. I'll take the contract directly. I'll call you when I'm done. You really don't need me to go with you. No, negotiating with Tu Xiao is just to act like a gangster. You, a little gangster, can't compare to his big bandit. Let's go and wash the car first. Han Qian started the car and left the underground garage of glory. Yan Qingqing returned to the company, holding her slightly aching head. As soon as she returned to the first floor, Gao Xincheng appeared in front of her. She looked at the Volvo passing by the main entrance and whispered softly. Road. Mr. Yan, are you going to let Han Qian do this for you? I'm really curious about what exactly you promised Han Qian, and it's worth him doing these things for you. From many perspectives, you can't compare to Chang. The one who enjoys it. Yan Qingqing chuckled, looked at the car that had disappeared, and said softly. It's trust. As she walked by Gao Zingli's words, her face was calm and she was unsure of what would happen if Han Qian saw Tu Xiao. Will there be any conflict with his temperament? After returning to the office, Yan Qingqing gave up. No matter what she is doing, she holds the phone in her hand tightly and does not let the phone lock the screen for a moment. She wants to receive a call from Han Qian as soon as possible, regardless of success or failure. Yan Qingqing is not the only one who is worried about Han Qian. Yang Lan and Suliang from the general department are also uneasy. This is not an ordinary negotiation, and the other party is not a serious businessman. Downstairs of an office building in District 8, Guandegu and his people have been waiting downstairs since dawn. Han Qian called him last night and said that he would discuss the cooperation with Glory again with Tu Xiao today. Master, then Bian also guessed that Han Qian was here to lower the price. He could negotiate, but he would never agree to lower the price. Behind Guandegu were a total of 50 boys, each wearing a suit and white gloves, divided into 2 rows. The outside ones were fine, but the boys at the inner gate had a cloth bag hung diagonally on their waist, with the handles of their knives exposed. The first floor of the office building was rented by Tu Xiao. This was not an office space, but his second base camp. 10:10. The silver-gray Volvo stopped in front of Guandegu. Han Qian looked at the formation outside the car, took a deep breath and got out of the car. Guan Yunbiao in the red suit lost his usual playfulness and nodded sternly. Mr. Han, my master has been waiting for you for a long time. Han Qian looked at the fierce-looking younger brother Ma Zhe, and his heart began to beat wildly. This scene that could only be seen on TV became a reality today, and he was also one of the protagonists. Han Qian was not in a hurry. He walked forward and threw the car keys in his hand to Guandegu. Fulfill your promise, the car will be yours to pick up and drop off Xiao Tukan. It is the car with the best safety performance in the world. Find someone to try it out. Guandegu didn't show any joy on his face, and after receiving the order, he called out to the 2 younger brothers behind him. Go and do maintenance on Mr. Han's car, then drive to pick up the eldest lady and ask if you are satisfied with the car. After the car drove away, Guandegu walked towards Han Qian, hugged his shoulders and finally smiled. Brother Han, shall we go up? Wait a minute, my legs are a little weak. Is your master going to hack me to death? Han Qian did not act arrogant in front of Guan Yunbiao. Guan Yunbiao said in a low voice with a slightly embarrassed look on his face. It depends on your luck, brother Han. I will risk my life to save your life. Guandegu's impression of Han Qian continued to increase little by little, from the moment they met until now, and he had given the car to him before he even talked about things with his master. In this way, giving the car can be said to be it has nothing to do with the master, it's just helping him solve a problem. I went to pick up the eldest lady to keep Han Qian safe. Of course, Han Qian knew it, otherwise he wouldn't have said that his legs were weak. Walking into the main entrance of the office building, the boys on both sides bent down at the same time and shouted in unison. Mr. Han. The chorus of low voices made Han Qian's heart beat wildly. Looking at the hilts of the knives behind him, Han Qian was really panicked. He used to think that Tu Xiao might be a smiling Maitreya Buddha, at least on the surface he looked kind-hearted, but now it seems that this guy is a real gangster. After walking through the hall, the scene inside changed. It was no longer the young man in a black suit, but beautiful girls in OL uniforms. Each of them wore glasses and flesh-colored stockings, with slim figures and beautiful faces. What the hell? Han Qian was really panicked. Walking to the door of the innermost room, the door was a Chinese-style curved willow door that opened on both sides. There was a word for loyalty on the left and right sides. Guan Degu knocked on the door lightly, and a deep sound came from inside, and then Guan Degu opened the door and took Han Qian into the office. The younger brother who was following him turned around and put his hands in front of him to guard the door. Opposite the window when you walk in, Tu Xiao's desk is on the east side. Finally I met Tu Xiao, who was very different from what I had imagined. His short silver gray hair was combed back, and he was wearing a blue sportswear, a pair of glasses, and a thin line from his left eye to the left corner of his mouth. Long scar. The scar failed to affect Tu Xiao's appearance, but instead added a bit of decisive killing momentum. The first thing I noticed about Tu Xiao was the office. The second thing I noticed was the office. The office was very big, more than 80 square meters. The desk was very big, and there were no messy computers on it. There were 4 pens, inks, papers and inkstones on it. The bookshelf behind him seems to be expensive. There are not many books on it, most of them are some antiques and photos of Tu Kun from childhood to adulthood. Tu Xiao really hurt Tu Kun. In the middle is a photo of a young woman holding a baby. This should be Tu Kun's deceased mother. The only thing that can be judged from this is that Tu Xiao felt very sorry for Tu Kun and his late wife. Han Qian didn't speak in a hurry because Tu Xiao had already stood up and walked past Han Qian and Guan Degu to the west side of the office. Only then did Han Qian realize that there was an indoor golf course here. Tu Xiao took off his sports top and exposed his back. Not strong. The muscles are very well developed, and there are more than 20 large and small scars on the back, one of which seems to be a gunshot wound. Tu Xiao was about 1.8 meters tall and weighed about 80 kilograms. When he waved the golf ball out, Han Qian swallowed. The ball hit the wall. When it landed, a figure appeared on the wall. Small pit. Han Qian swallowed, but he hasn't spoken yet. Guan Yunbiao on the side looked at his master, then at Han Qian, and he tentatively spoke. Master, this is the negotiator sent by General Manager Yan of the Honor Group, and he is also Han Qian, the uncle of the eldest lady. Tu Xiao turned around and looked at Han Qian with his eyes, and said calmly. It turns out he's the child's brother-in-law. Since my daughter has agreed to be my uncle, that's good for me. Just now, I thought it was the little girl Yan Qingqing who sent over to negotiate. Biozi, go get someone to prepare lunch. Child, her uncle, Xianai said that you gave her a lecture. I don't have much education and I don't know how to speak. In this company, I can get whatever I like and nothing else. I, Tu Xiao, am so poor that I only have money left. Han Qian grinned after hearing this and said with a smile. Since what boss Tu is most in need of is money, I won't hide anything. I will take away your 4 million today. 4 million? The lion opens its mouth. Are you going to die if your words are not shocking? Guan Yunbiao trembled with fright, while Tu Xiao smiled slightly at Han Qian. Biozi, let someone chop off his legs and throw them out to feed the fish. Han Qian smiled slightly and said. Boss Tu, I heard that you have been in a tight situation recently. The construction of shopping malls requires builders to inject funds in advance. These millions are probably not enough for you. I suggest that we sit down and talk first. Anyway, I am in this room now, so call early. It doesn't make much difference if you break my leg or break it later. What if my idea is beneficial to you? Tu Xiao hesitated, and Han Qian talked about his pain point. The biggest problem he didn't sign the contract with Gao Ji was because he didn't have the money to put it in. Then Guan Yunbiao suddenly spoke. Mr. Han just gave the eldest lady a car. It seems to be a Volvo with the highest safety performance. Tu Xiao glared at Guan Yunbiao, looked at Han Qian again, raised the corners of his mouth, and smiled with a somewhat contemptuous smile. Gao Juxing promised me 12 million, and the construction will be completed within 2 years. Why should you take away 4 million from me? A shopping mall of tens of thousands square meters is neither big nor small. Since you said I am short of money, how dare you come to grab money? I, Tu Xiao, don't have millions in savings in my hands. Tu Xiao's words once again helped Han Qian confirm the fact that Tu Xiao was short of money. Han Qian was not in a hurry to speak. He smiled at Tu Xiao and walked to the sofa under the window to sit down. He put the contract in his hand on the table. Tu Xiao squinted at Han Qian out of the corner of his eye. Boy, you are not afraid of death. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 93. Afraid. He was definitely afraid, but he couldn't say that he would not come because he was afraid. Han Qian was not in a hurry to speak. Although it was not good for him at the moment, it was even worse for Tu Xiao. If he had not had any scruples, he would not have delayed the relationship with Gao Juxing until today. After signing the contract, he said he could borrow money, but who dared to lend it to him? Han Qian was not in a hurry. Tu Xiao was playing with tea art on his table and had no intention of inviting Han Qian. Han Qian was not interested in this either. He sat on the sofa and smoked a cigarette, not impatient. After about 10 minutes, Guandego started to sweat on his head. He looked at the two of them curiously. Can we discuss business without talking? Just when Guandego was curious, Tu Xiao was the first to lose his composure and spoke. Boy, are you here to negotiate on behalf of Yan Qingqing? Tell me your conditions. Han Qian chuckled. Boss Tu seems to be confused about the current situation. First of all, there are many builders who have actively contacted our glory, and the prices are much lower than what Vice President Gao negotiated with you. The reason why we chose Boss Tu is because he wants to transform. At the same time, in a city, we, Mr. Yan, just want to give you a favor. The company will definitely choose the one with an affordable price first. Even if Vice President Gao agrees to you, the decision will have to be made through a high-level meeting. Our Mr. Yan's price is set at 8 million. Half a year, plus a Volvo. Take away my 4 million in one go. Are you, Mr. Yan, so brave? Or are you saying that you are not afraid of death? You should have seen how many people are outside. Do you think I will agree to this condition? Tu Xiao's mouth and eyes were full of sneers and sarcasm. Han Qian was not disturbed at all. He crossed his legs and leaned on the sofa with a smile. I think Boss Tu will agree, otherwise I wouldn't be able to sit here peacefully. It's just a matter of words for you to touch me. The reason why Boss Tu didn't rush to sign a contract with Gao Jingcheng should be very simple. There is no way for JOXI to provide you with enough funds to support the completion of the foundation. You need to advance the money yourself. Another reason is that you don't want to wait too long. Half of the project payment is paid to the workers. The longer it takes, the less you will earn. Calculate how much labor money you save in half a year compared to 2 years. Tu Xiao hesitated, and Han Qian continued. Boss Tu, you need to transform, and transform quickly. You should have discovered by now that after the strict crackdown, the entertainment business is getting harder and harder to do. The business in your hand must either be transformed or cashed out, and the daily losses will be if it becomes a burden to your business. It's better to give up completely and switch to real estate. Tu Xiao still didn't speak, but Han Qian's first blow had already been cut. As long as there was a wound, he would not hesitate to use the second blow. Little Tu Kun has grown up gradually. In the future, you can't let a girl inherit your gloomy business. I think you also know how dangerous and difficult this business is. When little Tu Kun grows up, Outsiders will say that she is the daughter of the black boss, which is not an honorable thing. Besides, if you want to give Tu-kun a better life, your current business cannot continue to support it. These words were very harsh in Tu Xiao's ears. He raised his head and glared at this reckless boy. If Li Jinhai hadn't called him, he would have dragged him out and chopped him up. Han Qian ignored Tu Xiao's eyes and continued. General Manager Yan will pay you all 8 million in advance for your construction. The shorter the time, the more you will earn. I think Mr. Yan is already very sincere. Tu Xiao smiled and sneered. Aren't you afraid that I'll take the money and run away? Or that I'll cut corners? Han Qian shook his head and smiled. If you could run away with 8 million, if Boss Tu could do it, you wouldn't be in the position you are in the 8th district today. As for cutting corners, I'm not worried at all. What Boss Tu wants to do is transformation, not a one-time business. If the problem of cutting corners was discovered when he first transformed into a builder, haha. 8 million is not much for glory, but the reputation that Boss Tu has maintained for half his life will be ruined. There is only one chance. I want to. The boss will not give up the opportunity to transform easily. Tu Xiao stood up, walked to Han Qian, rubbed his hands, and said ferociously. 8 million is absolutely impossible. Tell Yan Qing, 10 million. No, there are only 8 million. In addition, I will take 200,000 out of it. Because I am the boss too recommended by Mr. Yan, so you only get 7.8 million and a car. You can agree or not. Refuse. Oh. I forgot one thing, Li Jinhai's second son should have exchanged phone numbers with Tu-kun and Li Jiayi. The last sentence hit Tu Xiao's fate. Guan Yunbiao had already told Tu Xiao about this matter. Li Jinhai's second son admired Han Qian very much. He was like a brother-in-law, and he might become friends with the eldest lady. Tu Xiao was a little unsure about Han Qian's background for a while. The early delivery of 8 million made Tu Xiao very excited. At the same time, what Han Qian said made sense. The first transformation was very important. He was short of money now. The 8 million, if you take good care of it, you can definitely earn 1 to 2 million, not only solve your urgent need, but also successfully transform and get involved with glory. Boss 2, you have money and a strong backbone. Your real estate business will not affect your status in the 8th district at all. However, the chaos in the 8th district has nothing to do with you. Successful whitewashing requires seizing the right time, place, and people. I gave you all 3, if you miss it, there will be no next chance. Tu Xiao was not an indecisive person. He stepped forward and slapped Han Qian on the shoulder, saying angrily. Thank you for my daughter calling you brother-in-law, but you are not ambiguous at all when you deceive your own family. 200,000 is too much, so I will give you 100,000, and the remaining 100,000 will be saved for Tu-kun's dowry. Tu-kun's mother will leave it early, you, the uncle, have to make up for it. Tu Xiao had no reason not to be moved. Although he lost 4 million, he got a lot of benefits that money couldn't buy. Han Qian covered his burning shoulders, tilted his head and shouted. I'm a fake. Tu-kun is not my biological niece. Why should I give her a dowry of 100,000 yuan, 50,000 yuan? I will leave 50,000 yuan for you, and I will take away 150,000 yuan. You are short of money, I am here. There are still millions owed out there. No one says you are fake, so you are not a fake, 120,000 yuan. You're such a big black boss, why are you arguing with me over 32,000? 130,000, if it's even 1 cent less, I won't talk to you anymore. Bring the contract and sign it. It is absolutely impossible for Tu Xiao to be a fool to reach the position he is in today. The high performance of 12 million is tempting, but the money in his pocket is real. Tu Xiao signed the contract without even looking at it, and then he nodded to Guan Yunbiao, and soon 13 wads of money were brought in and placed in front of Han Qian. It's packed in a suitcase. Han Qian took a look, put the contract in the box and left. Just as he was about to go out, little Tu Kun rushed in, followed closely by Li Jiayi. Li Jiayi seemed to have met Tu Xiao and called him Uncle Tu. Tu Kun hugged Han Qian's arm and shouted happily. Uncle, did you really bring me a car? I heard Li Jiayi say that Volvo is the safest car in the world. It is smoother than those little animals and is the most suitable for picking me up. I have asked about that car. 400,000, did Sister Wen give you the money? You can't owe it to Sister Wen. Uncle Guan doesn't have 200,000 to buy a car, so you ask him for it. Tu Xiao, who was standing not far away, twitched at the corner of his eye. Why was this girl's elbow turned outward? Guan Degu scratched his head in embarrassment and pointed to the box in Han Qian's hand. Miss, the money has been given to Brother Han. Han Qian smiled and nodded. Yeah, give it to me. Your dad gave me 130,000 yuan, and said he would leave 70,000 yuan for your dowry. My uncle will suffer a little loss, so take less. I'm afraid your dad will let someone kill me. He dares. Tu Xiao. You bully my uncle. Tu Xiao was instantly frightened, bent over and rubbed his hands in a flattering manner, smiling. How dare you, how dare you? Your brother-in-law gave it to you on his own initiative. He who says he is an uncle must fulfill his responsibilities as an uncle. When you marry Jiai in the future, you will regard it as a gift from him, right? Han Qian, Biao son, go and get ready. It's time for brothers to have lunch. By the way, I'll settle last month's salary and ask someone to prepare it. It's noon, let's have a meal together. Tu Xiao didn't give Han Qian a chance to refuse. Han Qian took out his phone and took a look. It was almost 1 o'clock. How long would it take to have a meal? As soon as a group of people came to inquire, Li Jiai turned around and ran back. Han Qian also lowered his head and turned around to leave. Fate is such a strange thing, who the hell would have thought that I would encounter a nursery rhyme here? After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 94. Tanjeo looked at Tu Kun, who scratched his head awkwardly and forced a smile. Teacher Tong. Tong Yao tilted her head and looked at Tu Kun, wondering. Classmate Tu Kun, why are you here? Tu Kun was also a little confused. He turned around and glanced at his father, and replied in a confused manner. This is my home. Huh? Tu Xiao is your father? Yes, our last name is Tuesday. Then Han Qian, why are you here? Teacher Tong, she is my uncle. Tong Yao tilted her head and looked at the people in front of her, then patted her head as if she suddenly understood, and said seriously. It turns out he is your uncle, so why did he say he was Li Jiai's uncle? Li Jiai and I are in a relationship. We have met each other's parents. Is this difficult to understand, Teacher Tong? Why are you here? Usually people who come here are to pay back money or borrow money. Oh. I'm here to pay you back. Han, what do you want to see? I will return your umbrella to you. Sometimes Han Qian couldn't understand how Tong Yao became a teacher. Did she only have an IQ but no brain? After curling his lips and saying that he didn't want the umbrella, Tanjeo ignored Han Qian and was taken to make a settlement certificate. As a result, before a few people could walk out of the door, they heard Tanjeo's roar. 2,000 yuan in interest a month for only 10,000 yuan? You are loan sharking and are not protected by law. Teacher Tong, we are loan sharks. We made it clear when you borrowed money. I didn't hear it, and I didn't use it for a month. But what should I do if I only have 10,000 yuan and 500 yuan? Han Qian didn't mind his own business, but little Tu Kun turned around and rushed back. He kicked the blind boy in the calf and told him that he was not allowed to charge interest. This was her former class teacher, but Tong Yao stupidly insisted. After giving her 500 yuan, Tu Kun finally didn't bother to care about her anymore. Then when she went out, Tong Yao was stunned. She only had so much money in her pocket, and she forgot to prepare the fare for the car back. When he watched her eagerly rummaging through her bag, Han Qian closed his eyes and sighed feebly. When he opened his eyes, Tanjao's face appeared in front of him. Tanjao didn't wear glasses today, and her big eyes blinked, but this woman didn't look pitiful or cute at all, instead she had a look of anger. It's because of you that I'm so unlucky. If I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have been fired. If I hadn't been fired, I wouldn't have borrowed money. I wouldn't have borrowed money. Stop. Wherever you go, we'll take you there. If you're nagging, I'll throw you in the trunk and take you to a deserted grove. Then Tanjao opened the door and got in the car, not polite at all, but the woman didn't say where she was going. Guan Degu ignored him and drove to the reserved hotel. She got off the car at the hotel. Tanjao hadn't spoken yet and sat down. He didn't get out of the car and looked at Han Qian nervously. Han Qian tilted his head and frowned with a bit of anger. If you don't get out of the car, what are you waiting for? Are you mute? Didn't you say you wouldn't let me talk? Don't you know where I live? What the hell, I really know that I can't send you off. Just walk back by yourself. We are going to eat. I'm hungry too, Han Qian, you owe me. I also want to eat. You bitch, you haven't been beaten up by society. Why are you joining in the fun when we are eating together? Then I'll wait for you here. You can do whatever the hum you want. Han Qian, you must have never gone to school, you are really unqualified. Guan Degu couldn't help laughing at the side. At this time, Little Tu Kun and Li Jiai also got off Tu Xiao's car. Little Tu Kun ran over and looked at Han Qian, and then looked at glancing at the nursery rhymes in the car. The little girl smiled sinisterly. Teacher Tong, let's come together if we don't have lunch. It just so happens that I also have some questions that I want to ask you. Tong Yao became reserved now, blushed slightly, and whispered. No. Not very good. Oh, once I am a teacher, I am always a father. Just think of it as you giving me extra lessons. Tu Kun pulled the nursery rhyme out of the car. Tu Xiao ignored the female teacher and did not expel her. Instead, he told Guan Degu to return the 500 yuan to the woman. Being a teacher is not easy. In fact, Tu Xiao she has a fondness for nursery rhymes in her heart, not of course the male-female kind, but the way she looked at Tu Kun when they first met was full of worry. When he went upstairs, Han Qian sent text messages to the people who were worried about him, telling Nuan that he and Xiao Tu Kun had gone out to eat, telling Yan Qingqing that the contract negotiation was over, and telling Yang Lan and Sul Yang to see them after work. Nuan replied with a text message saying that today I went to Lao Wen's place for dinner at the party, so I didn't need to worry about her. Sister Yang replied with a note of caution, but Sul Yang and Yan Qingqing did not reply. When they were seated, the waiter began to serve the food. Tu Xiao asked about Jiai's grades and seemed to be very satisfied with the young man. However, he did not ask about his daughter's grades. Guan Degu and Han Qian were close together and asked in a low voice when Han Qian was coming. Got hooked up with this teacher who was a bit stupid. Han Qian pushed Guan Degu away angrily, and then Tu Xiao spoke. Han Qian, the current internal chaos in Glory is extremely chaotic. Gao Jingxing is Lu Shenge's brother-in-law, and Yan Qingqing is a college student sponsored by Lu Shenge. The one who benefits from these two competitions is Lu Shenge. You will not end up well if you stay there. How about you come to my place, and all 6 businesses will be taken care of by you, and the profits of one of them will be yours, and you can still get 200,000 or 300,000 a month. Han Qian raised his head and smiled. No, if I take over your business, my mother-in-law will definitely destroy me. I am too weak to do it, huh? I have also heard people in the company say that Lushenga seems to be the largest shareholder of Glory. Tu Xiao curled his lips and said disdainfully. A man who is obsessed with money and interests but cannot be a man. I have also heard from people that this mysterious Lushenga had some accidents in his early years. His wife died and he ended up in an inhumane state. Oh. There is a child here. I won't go into details. After that, this guy's heart became twisted. He funded many talented college students. Yan Qingqing was one of them. He seemed to be cultivating an heir. He had no relatives or juniors. The closest person was Gao Fulai. Yes, can you figure it out? Tu Xiao didn't know what to say. If it weren't for Tong Yao's dry cough, he wouldn't have known to avoid the two children. When Tong Yao got a cup of tea, Han Qian frowned and said softly. Is this guy dangerous? Which eunuch is not extreme? Doesn't have a twisted heart? Be careful that he becomes interested in you. Han Qian nodded lightly, but before he could think about it, Tan Jiao suddenly stood up, looked at Tu Xiaojia with an angry face and shouted. Mr. Tu, even though I have only been Tu Kun's class teacher for a few days, she is now my student. I ask you, as a father, to avoid speaking in front of your children. Parents' words will affect their children's lives. Mr. Tu, please stop this topic, I want to be responsible for my students. Smelly bitch. The Lord humiliates his ministers to death. As soon as Guandego stood up, he was hit in the face by Tu Xiao's thrown cigarette. In an instant, Guandego sat down quietly, and Tu Xiao laughed at the nursery rhyme. Yes, 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 Teacher Tong is right, I will definitely pay attention. Tong Yao sat down, and little Tu Kun quietly gave Tong Yao a thumbs up. In Tu Xiao's eyes, he just felt that his daughter was extremely cute, and laughed loudly. I, Tu Xiao, am not a good person. I have done nothing but deceit, kidnapping, burning, killing, looting, and no one who scolded me has a happy ending. But there are only two kinds of people. Even if I slap Tu Xiao, I will laugh. I have to apologize. One is the doctor who saved my woman's life in the hospital, and the other is the teacher who teaches my daughter. This is probably the most difficult and least good profession in today's society. Biozi wanted to kill that quack doctor back then. I stopped him and saved my woman's life without sleeping for nearly 40 hours. Even if it failed, how can I say that he didn't try hard? He was incompetent. Even if I was given Tu Xiao for 400 years, there was nothing I could do. As for the nursery rhyme teacher, you were thinking about Tu Kun when we met today, and I am very grateful to you. It's my duty. This girl in the nursery rhyme is not very appreciative, but just like this, Tu Xiao is more pleased with her. However, although he is pleased with Han Qian, he still feels a little sorry for the 130,000 yuan. Tu Kun and the two children finished eating early, and Han Qian gave Li Jiayi 200 yuan and asked him to send the nursery rhyme teacher home first, and then go back to school. There were only 3 people left at the dinner table, and De Go kept silent while eating. After the person left, Tu Xiao also knew that he had something to say. I have never met Lushenga, and I have only heard people mention it a few times. The twist in my heart is not that he treats women, but that he only sees people, regardless of gender. I heard that he has the ability to a person is very interested. Once he becomes interested in someone, he will spend money to work for him, or he will play this person to death little by little. Oh. By the way, some people say that he has an antisocial personality, but it seems to me that he just chooses some games to vent those unventable desires. Han Qian put down his chopsticks and frowned. Do you think he will target me? I guess I'm targeting you now, Han Qian. You'd better let me owe you a favor as soon as possible. Sometimes I, Tu Xiao, am more useful in this city than the policeman at the Yamankao. Han Qian did not answer. After half an hour, he stood up, waved, and left quietly with a cigarette in his mouth. After Han Qian left, Guan Yunbiao stood up and closed the door, saying softly, "Master, how is this Han Qian? He has the guts but not the heart. He has a good brain and a sharp tongue. If you have a good relationship with him, then continue to date him. Don't grovel to show your kindness, and don't look down on him from a high position. You are a stubborn person who refuses to accept hard words. The kind that doesn't turn around until you hit the wall. I'm afraid I'm going to break through the south wall. I don't know if Xiao Tukan will suffer a loss if he calls me uncle. Master, that Volvo is so comfortable to drive. You have no future. Take these 30,000 yuan and give it to Xiao Qian. I have been with you for more than 10 years and I haven't got a name yet. I have given you 2 children. Biozi, you can owe me anything in this life, just don't owe yourself anything, woman." At this point, Tu Xiao picked up a glass of white wine and drank it in one gulp, sighing. "I owe you a debt, and I will never be able to repay it in my lifetime." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 95. As soon as he walked out of the hotel, Han Qian forgot about Lu Shenga. He was a high-ranking capitalist. He was a small clerk who had never been able to talk to each other all his life. Looking at the money in his hand, Han Qian smiled. Making money is actually not difficult. If you can keep your composure, have some brains, be bold, and tie your head to your belt first, you can always make money. If you can endure hardship, you can make money. This is what Han Qian firmly believes. When saving money, Han Qian kept 10,000 yuan in his hand. He walked out of the bank carrying a box with only a wad of money and a contract. He felt the sun shining on his face. Han Qian felt comfortable and happy. He would pick it up when he got back. The bonus in Yan Qingqing's hand should not be less than 200,000 yuan. After calculation, she has already earned 700,000 yuan this month. The day when the 4 million will be paid off is only a matter of days. Han Qian only saw the satisfaction of making money and felt his abilities. He ignored his efforts and risks. If his first bold plan failed, he would be expelled from glory. There is no way to use any force inside. And this time the danger is greater. What if? If Han Qian's bet fails, if Tu Xiao is not short of money now, Han Qian's contract cannot be signed today, Yan Qingqing's military order will fail, and he cannot leave Tu Xiao's office easily. Even if there was Li Jinhai, he would be beaten up if he went there today, or he would be left with something before he could leave. Tu Xiao had the younger brother who was to blame. It's a pity that Han Qian didn't think about these things because it had already passed. Only look at the future and don't look back at the past. The retro mobile phone vibrated. Han Qian never dared to let this thing ring its iconic ringtone. Brother, he is also a shameless person, okay. Aunt G? Han Qian pressed the connect button and smiled. What's wrong with Aunt G? Do you miss me? Look, let me just say he is still alive. Why don't you have confidence in my eldest nephew now? Han Qian thought that this was not talking to him, and then Ji Jing said "Muao" to the phone and hung up the phone. Han Qian couldn't help but took the phone away and wiped his face. Is Aunt Ji thinking about spring? Han Qian felt a chill down his spine and shivered on a hot day. So scary. When Han Qian was trembling, a person suddenly appeared behind him. He stretched out his hand to cover Han Qian's eyes and said naively, "Big monkey, guess who I am?" Han Qian calmly put his hands behind his back, and found that with all his strength he could only touch the left and right sides of the person behind him. Han Qian turned around and gave the person behind him a bear hug. "Dunner, I miss my brother so much." Ma Kexan innocently hugged the thin Han Qian. While eating, Han Qian sent a text message to Kexen and agreed to meet up later. Unexpectedly, this little fat guy came so quickly. Han Qian touched this guy's meat, and then looked at his big chest muscles, which seemed to be a size bigger than Wen Nuan. Seeing Han Qian's eyes, Ma Kexen knew what this guy was thinking. His 260-pound body was tightly squeezing Han Qian's thin body, and Han Qian had no ability to resist at all. Have you eaten? You're still hungry after eating. Let's go. I'll treat you to some noodles. Han Qian patted Kxian's generous back. The two brothers found a small restaurant in the corner. They had 2 bowls of noodles and a plate of side dishes. It was very simple. Kxian paid for the meal. He still thought Han Qian was the one who didn't the money guy. Han Qian didn't rush to pay the bill. He opened the box and took out the 10,000 yuan inside and put it on the table. I have some money in my hands, and I am a lot better off. I have not been in contact with them in the past few years, and I have not been able to send blessings to them when they got married. My brother is not qualified enough. You can take this 10,000 yuan, you won't get much money for working next to your incompetent relative. Don't be polite. I was not polite at all when I spent your money when I was a kid. Is it developed? Now I'm not short of money. I don't have big money. I still have enough pocket money. I don't have a girlfriend, so I don't have much to spend. I'll take 2,000, and you can save the rest. I told you to just take it. What nonsense are you talking about? Let's go home together during the Chinese New Year. Sister-in-law, are you going back? I won't go with you. She doesn't like us very much. Let's go together then. Ken. Let's go together then. Okay, I get it. You're just as good as me. If you know I won't beat you, where will you go in the afternoon? Go back to the company, ask them if they have time during the Chinese New Year, and get together. I also want to ask he what happened. It took a total of an hour from the meeting to Kexen's separation. When the little fat man left, he threw a box of cigarettes to Han Qian. The kind he had never seen the name of and had never smoked. Han Qian, who had eaten 2 meals in a row, felt a little exhausted and walked all the way back to the company. It was already 4 o'clock when he walked into Yan Qingqing's office. Han Qian slumped on the sofa weakly and whined. "Ching Ching, give me a glass of water." After saying this, she threw the contract on the coffee table. Yan Qingqing stood up on the boss's chair and frowned with a smile. You look like a kid who got 100 points and went home. How was the contract negotiation process? Tu Xiao didn't let anyone kill you. While talking, Yan Qingqing gave Han Qian a glass of warm water. Han Qian sat up, took the cup and handed it to Yan Qingqing. Now that I'm here, I'm lying when I say I didn't chop him, but I still didn't chop him. I even snatched 130,000 from him. Do you think I'm awesome? Don't see. Pooh. Yan Qingqing handed the second glass of water to Han Qian, then picked up the contract on the table and took a look at it. After reading it, she nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, my General Han. He can also swindle money out of Tu Xiao's hands. The little girl admires him very much. Have you ever asked him what he thought after taking 8 million? Han Qian put down his cup and shook his head. I didn't ask him what he thought, but I analyzed it for him. 8 million is not worth Tu Xiao's escape. If it weren't for the severe crackdown, he would still be able to earn several million in a year, but his expenses are too high. It will cost a lot of money to stabilize one's position in the 8th district over the course of a year, but I haven't saved much money. I am the kind of person who knows how to make money and doesn't care about money. I gave the car to Tu Xiao as a stepping stone. 1. Can I still get the bonus? You took 130,000, I'm giving you 20. These 200,000 can be used for the company's finance. You also said that Tu Xiao, the 10,000 given to you yesterday was spent by you within 10 minutes. You don't have a woman to help you save money now, so just leave it with me and give it to you during the new year. Aren't you the woman who helps me manage my money? What Han Qian said didn't mean anything else. The money was in Yan Qingqing's hands. He said it casually, but something didn't sound right in Yan Qingqing's ears. The girl suddenly blushed and came closer to Han Qian. Whispered. You want me to help you manage your money? The gentle voice made Han Qian get goosebumps all over his body. He looked at Yan Qingqing doubtfully, raised his hand and touched her forehead, and said doubtfully. Yaksha Empress didn't eat a child last night? Why are you so mean when you talk? I want someone to help me manage my money, but you won't do it? You don't care who manages it, so what? You want to introduce me to a girlfriend? I want a sexy girl with a curvy front and back, and I want to bring glory to my country. Yan Qingqing's expression kept changing. When she heard that Han Qian wanted a foreign girl, she exploded and reached out to grab Han Qian's ears. Boom. Headbutt? Oh shit. Han Qian was knocked down and squatted between the sofa and the coffee table, covering his head and unable to lift his head. Yan Qingqing acted as if nothing was wrong. In fact, she was also in pain, but not as painful as Han Qian. Han Qian was biting his back molar. Said angrily. Do you women all have shot put heads? Those things are for thinking, not weapons. There are no brain seeds among the 18 weapons, oh my god. Yan Qing, who originally wanted to help Han Qian rub his forehead, was stunned on the spot, then said with a gloomy expression and anger. You. Women. Who else has smashed your head? Han Qian, please tell me the truth. Han Qian raised his head, with tears in his eyes. He had been hit by Wen Nuan once last night, and he was hit again not even 24 hours ago. Han Qian sat on the sofa, rubbing his forehead and gritting his teeth. You seem to be the daughter-in-law who caught your husband cheating on you now. What's wrong? My forehead is now a restricted area? When someone wants to hit my forehead, do I have to say that this place has been copyrighted? How much did it cost? I bought it? Damn it, I feel sick when I think of doing the same childish thing as Wen Juying. Isn't it time for you to bite my forehead? Women. They are indeed fickle. After saying this, Han Qian panicked, stood up and ran away. Yan Qingqing threw herself into the air and failed to catch Han Qian. She lay on the sofa and made charming movements, waving her fingers at Han Qian. Come on, Han Qian. I've been suffering from pain in my back recently. I will definitely fight you, a goblin, for 300 rounds someday. Farewell. Han Qian ran away, and Yan Qingqing was so angry that she kicked out the cup Han Qian had used. Fortunately, it was a paper cup. Han Qian wiped the sweat from his forehead and returned to the general department. As soon as he sat down, Suliang turned around and looked at Han Qian. Doubted. What happened to your forehead? Did you let Boss 2 hit you? Suliang's voice was loud. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Lan ran over, looked at Han Qian's forehead seriously, and asked seriously. How did you do it? It was so heavy-handed. Han Qian's face was held by Yang Lan, and he was forced to pout it and said vaguely. Sister Yang, are all women's foreheads made of iron? I am the hero, and Mr. Yan hit me with her forehead. Yang Lan let go of Han Qian, narrowed his eyes and smiled. Just flirting. She's so punchy. It's okay, isn't he still alive? Sister Yang, come on, let's smash it together, and let the younger brother express his respect and love for his older sister. Yang Lan pressed Han Qian's forehead and pointed to his desk. Han Qian turned around and saw a piece of paper taped to the table with several large characters written on it. If you dare to fight again, you will have to clean the toilet on the 14th floor for a week. I can't live this life. Han Qian lay on the table and lamented. At this time, Yang Ian's cell phone rang. After Yang Lan answered the phone, he said a good word and then patted Han Qian on the shoulder. Don't leave after get off work, there's something wrong. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 96. Don't leave after get off work. What's wrong? Han Qian's first reaction was that I had done something wrong again. Then when he thought about it, he felt like he had never done anything that did not violate the company's regulations, and he lay helplessly on the table. What a sin! These 3 words will become his mantra. When Han Qian was trying to recall what he had done in his previous life, Qianwan and Suliang appeared next to Han Qian, and Qianwan asked curiously. Brother Qianer, are you living with Vice President Wen now? When I went home yesterday, President Yan nagged and scolded you all night. Han Qian nodded vigorously, then grabbed De Qianer's arm, wiped his face with her sleeve and sighed. Big money, my life is miserable. I am living in dire straits now. De Qianer pushed Han Qian's head away with a look of disgust. Suliang said next. Vice President Wen is water? Vice President Yan is fire? Brothers, the 2 heavens of ice and fire are so wonderful. Get out. Brother Qianer, since you and Vice President Wen are divorced, why are you still living together? I owe her money. Han Qian had just answered De Qianer when Suliang said. Meat payment. Han Qian turned around and patted Suliang's pig's trotters and said angrily. I'll pay your uncle with my flesh. I owe her money, a lot of money. Han Qian made a gesture of embracing the world, then lay on the table with a sad face and whispered. I don't want to work hard anymore. Suliang patted Han Qian's shoulder with compassion. Qianwan sat on Han Qian's table. The relationship between the 3 of them was getting closer and closer. Li Dongsheng, not far away, looked at the 3 of them and listened to what Han Qian just said. Curled his lips and sneered. Poor guy. His voice was not quiet, and it reached Han Qian's ears. As soon as Han Qian stood up, there were 2 more claws on his shoulders. He turned around in the chair, leaned sideways on the back of the chair and smiled at Li Dongsheng. Your mother doesn't want it anymore. Poor guy. Your mother has given birth to a 2nd child. Your size is useless. Your mother doesn't want you anymore. Your mother doesn't want you. Anyway, your mother doesn't want you anymore. Are you afraid? Are you going to cry? Your mother doesn't want you anymore. No one wants you, my little one. Han Qian kept repeating the sentence, which made Qianwan sitting next to him couldn't help laughing. It seemed that he would say this when he was 3 or 5 years old when he was arguing, to scare the other person and say that his mother didn't want him anymore, or, he would say this when teasing Bai. At this moment, Han Qian regarded Li Dongsheng as a child. Han Qian didn't take Li Dongsheng seriously, but Li Dongsheng was extremely angry. Li Dongsheng stood up and pointed at Han Qian and said angrily. Han Qian, when my dad comes back to China, I will ask my mom to tell him to expel you. Han Qian didn't take these words seriously at all, shook his head, looked at Li Dongsheng seriously, and said seriously. Li Dongsheng, let me ask you something. Explain. Are you still breastfeeding? I'll hum your mother. Li Dongsheng couldn't help it any longer. He raised his stool and rushed towards Han Qian with an angry curse. Han Qian got up and ran until he was behind Lu Zhuolong. He grabbed Lu Zhuolong's shoulders with both hands and said pitifully. Deputy Lu, you saw that I didn't start a fight, but Li Dongsheng wanted to hit me. What should I do? Wait online. It's very urgent. Han Qian didn't take Li Dongsheng to heart at all, but he had to admit that this guy was raised very well by his mother. He stood up to about 1.85 meters. When he lifted the stool, Han Qian could clearly see his well-developed penis. Biceps. This mama's boy seems to have a lot of fun. At this time, Lu Zhuolong was also in a bit of a dilemma. Yang Lan, who was going out, specifically told him to look at the general department and never fight. He saw Han Qian and Li Dongsheng arguing just now. Han Qian had no intention of taking action. Su Liang and Qianwan were also beside him. Li Zhuolong didn't pay much attention to him. When he heard Han Qian ask, "Are you still breastfeeding?" he knew something was wrong. But Han Qian didn't take action. Li Dongsheng was the one who did. Lu Zhuolong stepped forward and grabbed the chair in Li Dongsheng's hand, saying in a deep voice, "Dongsheng, don't be impulsive, put the stool down quickly. Come on, didn't you hear he scolded me? Come here and stop me now. Han Qian, you are a man, come here now." Li Dongsheng didn't give Lu Zhuolong any face, and he didn't need to. Qianwan Hua, who was still sitting on Han Qian's table, said coldly, "Han Qian scolded you? We didn't hear it, but you scolded them all the time. What? Did you say you were shy about sucking milk? Did you become angry?" Li Dongsheng couldn't get away, and the chair in his hand was taken away by Lu Zhuolong. He pointed at Qianwan and cursed. "Bitch, don't think that I won't dare to touch you as long as your aunt is protecting you. I'll beat you to death." Qianwan cursed back. "You baby boy who wears diapers, try touching me. Can Li Dahai protect you?" As soon as Qianwan finished speaking, he suddenly felt a figure appear in front of him. Han Qian put a large amount of money on his shoulders and whistled at Su Liang. "Come on, he is sick and we are sick too. Why bother with a child? Let's go, let's go. What if he has mental illness?" Han Qian's words were the most insulting. Qianwan lay on Han Qian's shoulder and made faces at Li Dongsheng. Su Liang raised his head and ran out of the general department with a big smile. At this time, other departments had already come to the general department to watch the fun. When they saw Han Qian carrying Qianwan and running out of the general department, their faces became colorful. Han Daxian has started robbing people now? How hungry does this have to be? This was the idea of later people. The people who came here early to watch the excitement also looked at the three people who ran away with whispers. These three guys made Director Li Sun very angry. This can't afford to offend, can't afford to offend. Han Qian's reputation is getting worse and worse, and his legend has begun to spread. When Han Qian walked to the elevator carrying a lot of money, he happened to meet Yang Lan walking out of the elevator. He was slightly stunned when he saw Han Qian carrying Qianwan. Han Qian was also stunned. He put down Qianwan and was about to run away, but the result was still Yang Lan grabbed the collar of Han Qian's back and slapped him repeatedly on Han Qian's back. "Don't stop for 1 minute, let you stop. This is a company, not a playground. Why are you running around with Qianwan on your back? There is Qianwan. Why are you following Han Qian's nonsense? You are so angry with me, so angry with me." Even as he said this, he was still upset and stretched out his hand to twist Han Qian's ears. Han Qian bared his teeth and grinned stupidly. Su Liang on the side covered his head with a pig's trotter and couldn't help but explain. "Sister Yang, it was Li Dongsheng who provoked and cursed people in the office. If he was scolded, he would take action. Don't we want to maintain the harmonious atmosphere in the general department? If we can't fight, we would just run away. As for the big money, to avoid conflicts between shareholders. It seems that the general department cannot be separated." Yang Lan grabbed Han Qian's ear and took out his mobile phone to call Song Jing, then pointed at Su Liang and Qianwan and said, "You two come with me." Han Qian said quickly when he heard that he had nothing to do. "Sister Yang, can I go downstairs and have a cigarette?" "You I have to take you away. Yang Lan brought 3 problem children into the elevator. The Human Resources Department on the 10th floor. Song Jing's mouth twitched as she looked at the 3 elementary school students standing behind Yang Lan, who bowed their heads to admit their mistake, especially Han Qian and Qian Wan. She couldn't help but ask with twitching corners of her mouth. Yang, Manager Yang, you didn't give 3 of them to me, right? Sister, the temple here is small and can't accommodate such 3 big Buddhas. Manager G's side is short of people, so I'm here, I'll go with you. Rejected before you even spoke. Yang Lan was so embarrassed. He turned around and punched and kicked Han Qian and Sul Yang. His fists and embroidered legs didn't hurt. Yang Lan couldn't bear to use his strength to punish the 2 broken children. After the punishment, Yang Lan raised his head and rubbed his temples. With her hanging hair tucked behind her ears, she took a deep breath and looked at Song Jing. Not 3. I have to take Han Qian away. I can't help Sul Yang and Qian Wan study with you for a few days. Manager Song, the current general department is like a kindergarten class, and I am just like a teacher. It's impossible not to separate. Song Jing looked slightly embarrassed and asked in a low voice. Are you sure there is no Han Daxian Er? It's no problem without him. Han Qian was unhappy when he said this and tilted his head and asked. Hey. Manager Song, we don't have any grudges, right? Why am I not worthy of the HR department? Give me 3 days, and I will definitely make your HR department full of chaos. It hurts. Before he finished speaking, Han Qian was dragged away by Yang Ian's ears. As he left, he gritted his teeth and told the 2 people who stayed behind. If you 2 get into trouble in the Human Resources Department, I will send you both home even if I resign. Han Qian, please give me a shout. I have never been so tired even when I teach Xiao Baibei to do homework. Don't you? Have you grown up? The figure disappears, but the voice remains. Sul Yang raised the pig's trotter and scratched his head, smiled awkwardly at Song Jing, then bent down at 90 degrees and shouted loudly. Please give me some advice. My surname is Suming Liang. Qian Wan slapped Sul Yang on the head and cursed softly. Idiot. Then he stepped forward and hugged Song Jing's arm, coquettishly returning the bribe. Sister Song is so beautiful. What kind of cosmetics are you using? I've been spoiled by Amway a lot recently. I was itchy so I bought a dozen more. I'll bring them to you tomorrow. I'm Sister Song. I can help you in personnel matters. Do you want to play games? I will never just play games and not talk or make trouble. Report to Manager Song, I am the same. Song Jing suddenly felt a headache and said helplessly. The computers in the HR department are very. It's okay. I'll bring it myself. Brother Liang I'll bring one for you. Hey. I wonder if Brother Qian will come to the personnel department to see us. Qian Wan seemed to feel a little regretful, then Sul Yang spoke softly. How about I go and beg Sister Yang? Qian will definitely not be able to defeat Li Dongshen when he returns to the general department. After the 2 guys conspired, Song Jing called Ji Jing and explained the situation here. Ji Jing laughed loudly and promised to come and pick one up tomorrow morning. Song Jing breathed a sigh of relief, and she suddenly I sympathize with Yang Lan, she has worked very hard to manage the general department. A Han Daxian Er stirred up the chaos of glory. Ji Jing's call was answered in front of Han Qian, and now there were 3 women standing in front of Han Qian. Ji Jing, Yang Lan, Yan Qing. Han Qian took a deep breath. Honey, I still have something to do, first. Before Han Qian could run away, Yang Lan grabbed his arm and stopped him, scolding him. Mr. Yan wants to take you to buy clothes. Why are you running? This time you have brought honor to the general department again. My sister will also reward you with one. Also. I didn't have a pleasant meal last night. That's what Jijing said. Jijing raised her arms and shouted happily. Eat hot pot. It's the end of the month, monthly pass. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 97. Han Qian was stuffed into the BMW, and it was more difficult for the Raptor to find a parking space. Jijing drove, Yang Lan sat in the passenger seat, and Han Qian and Yan Qingqing sat in the back of the car. Han Qian was so scared that he didn't dare to take a breath. He was afraid that the three women would drag him into the woods and beat him up. Han Qian, I want to congratulate you first. This time, Director Qian has read our contract and Tu Xiao's contract. There is no need for a meeting for the board of directors to intervene in such a small matter. It can be decided by making a decision. Do you think I should take you there? I'm buying a set of clothes. I have clothes. I bought them last year. They are quite new. Han Qian really didn't want to go. Shopping with women was simply too difficult. Jijing, who was driving, smiled and asked Han Qian jokingly if his underwear was from last year. Han Qian was furious. I'm going to take it off your head now. Come on. If you don't take off your clothes, you're not a man. Bah. If you want to see me without clothes, just say so. Han Qian and Jijing started to quarrel again. He didn't seem to be good at chatting sweetly with girls. Yan Qingqing covered her forehead and said weakly. Okay, you two, stop making trouble. This time I took the credit from Han Qian again. Now the whole company thinks that it was me, Yan Qingqing, and Tu Xiao who negotiated. I feel a little sorry, and there is one more thing. Han Qian. Director Qian seems to be very interested in you, Lu Shenga called me today and asked about you. Oh. Han Qian said carelessly, and Jijing, who was driving, asked Yan Qingqing with some confusion what the mysterious chairman looked like. It was said that few people in the company had seen it, but Yan Qingqing did not answer. When the car passed a traffic light, Han Qian slapped him on the leg. Who? Lu Shenga. This guy just came back to his senses. Yan Qingqing gritted her teeth angrily and glared at Han Qian, saying in a deep voice. Next time pat yourself on the leg. Also, keep the claws away. Han Qian lowered his head and looked at the paw that fell on Yan Qingqing's black stocking leg, and smiled awkwardly. Then, instead of taking it away, he helped Yan Qingqing tug on her skirt and whispered, It's gone, it's gone. Yan Qingqing's anger couldn't hold it anymore and grabbed Han Qian's ear, aiming it at Han Qian's head. Han Qian pushed Yan Qingqing's face with a look of horror. The two were having a fuss in the back seat. After a few minutes, Yan Qingqing gave up. Han Qian sighed, and then frowned. Only now did he remember what Tu Xiao said. This Lu Shenga seemed to be a very dangerous, perverted, and extreme guy. Tu Xiao's advice was just a favor. The credibility is not low, but it cannot be fully believed. He is also suspected of poaching people. But he couldn't take it seriously. Han Qian turned around and said softly. Qingqing, I heard people say that Lu Shenga is a guy who only has interests in his eyes. It seems that he can't be a cheater. Yan Qingqing looked at Han Qian in confusion and shook her head. I haven't met him either. I was a student sponsored by him in the same batch. After graduation, I had relatively good grades. I interned in another company of his for 3 months and then came to honor as the general manager. Now you know why Gao Jixi wants to let me throw him away, and who did you hear from him? He can't cheat? Also, if you call me Qingqing, I will bite you to death. Han Qian scratched his head and whispered. What Tu Xiao said, he said he hasn't seen it before, but he just heard that Lu Shenga is not from our city. No, from Beijing. Do you believe me when I say that Glory is just a toy of his? I don't know much about him, but you are right about one thing. He only cares about profit. It should be Gao Jixi who has filed a complaint. It's not a big deal, no matter what, if he goes too far, sister will resign and say goodbye to him. Yan Qingqing said it simply, and Han Qian didn't worry too much about this matter. He probably just had an idea in his mind. Ji Jing's car stopped at Zhongyang Road. Ji Jing got out of the car and ran to buy a stir-fried stew. She liked this, and Nguyen Wen also liked this. Han Qian didn't like it very much, it was too boring, and Yan Qingqing didn't seem to have it. After thinking about it, tell Han Qian that shopping will take a long time and it is best to eat something first. Han Qian, who had eaten too much in the afternoon, had no appetite. Ji Jing was a pure foodie, so she bought a fried stewed rice dumpling. He handed the water to Han Qian and asked him to take it. After entering the mall, Han Qian regretted it. These three women buying him clothes were fake. He was responsible for carrying the bags. Ji Jing and Yang Lan gradually disappeared, leaving Han Qian and Yan Qingqing alone in the mall. She didn't go to Glory department store. Yan Qingqing said she didn't like to buy things by herself, so she felt like she was at a loss. Yan Qingqing, who was off work, was wearing a pair of black stockings with a logo on them. Han Qian didn't know much about this stuff, but it seemed that it was not cheap. She wore a white hip-covering skirt and looked very smart. Han Qian wore a black plastic bag. Inside were Yang Lan and Yan Qingqing's bags. Convenient. Yan Qingqing took Han Qian all the way to an English store. Han Qian didn't recognize it. He stood at the door and looked up for a long time without seeing anything. He could only confirm that the clothes sold inside were women's clothes, which Yan Qingqing liked. Kind. When she walked into the store, she found that Yan Qingqing was surrounded by shopping guides, who enthusiastically introduced each product. Yan Qingqing was also very efficient in shopping. As long as she reached out to touch it, the shopping guide would pack it up. The shopping guides are also very skilled, and it seems that this is not the first time they have received Yan Qingqing. Han Qian's mouth twitched when he looked at the label of the product. Is it 4 digits? Although it is normal, this is beyond Han Qian's tolerance. What he can afford is 500 yuan, from head to toe, inside and out. As for clothes, just wear them. As for shoes, as long as they are not tiring. Han Qian saw some winter clothes on sale in the corner. One of the white coats made Han Qian feel very good. In winter, the house in his hometown is not as good as a building. It is suitable to buy one for his mother. The price tag is 1,000 points. After the discount, more than $300. Hey, do you have a smaller version of these clothes? There are words on it, read it yourself. Mr. Yan, look at this set. It suits your temperament very well. The price is only over 4,000. The shopping guide replied to Han Qian angrily, and then served Yan Qingqing with a flattering look. Mr. Yan was their god of wealth. As long as Mr. Yan came once, they would have enough to eat this month. Han Qian understood, but he wasn't angry. He took a closer look and found that he wore a lot of clothes in winter, so it shouldn't be too big. He could wear it at home and outside the house, so it wouldn't hinder anything. He would take his mother there one day when he has time. Buy a few good ones. Hello, can you wrap it up for me? He opened his mouth to look for the shopping guide again. This time, the shopping guide ladies did not look back and continued to fight to introduce Yan Qingqing. Han Qian thought he had not heard and said again. Hello, can you wrap it up for me? I want to buy this dress. This time there was a reply, but there was no sound. Instead, a paper bag was thrown over. Han Qian looked at the bag at his feet, and then at the shopping guide in the store. He smiled faintly, turned around and left the store. I am too lazy to care so much about women, and I can understand that they are all here to make money, so there is no need to argue, just don't buy it. Yan Qingqing, who was looking at the clothes, stopped what she was doing, frowned slightly when she saw Han Qian walking out of the store, and then glanced at the middle-aged white coat. Yan Qingqing sighed. No more. Okay, Mr. Yan, let's take a look at this. I said no more. Yan Qingqing suddenly burst out with a scolding, and all the shopping guides and store managers in the store were stunned. They didn't know where they had provoked the god of wealth. Yan Qingqing pushed away the shopping guide in front of her and looked at the back of the person standing on the railing. She felt very sad. Not good. At this time, the store manager asked softly what made her dissatisfied. Yan Qingqing said lightly. He's unhappy. After saying this, Yan Qingqing walked out of the store, gently held Han Qian's arm, and chuckled. I won't come to this store anymore, okay, my General Han. The store manager and shopping guide heard the sentence clearly. They never expected that this inconspicuous man, whose total cost does not exceed 500 yuan, was with Mr. Yan to choose the discounted products. They also knew that the fat is in the fire. The store manager picked up the clothes Yan Qingqing selected just now and the white coat and ran after Yan Qingqing. No matter how she shouted and begged behind her, Yan Qingqing never looked back. She told Han Qian softly. Do you feel sorry for them? Han Qian smiled and nodded. Maybe later, but not now. Just forget about it tomorrow. Let's go. Go find Jijing and Yang Lan. They went to pick out clothes for you. They were worried that you wouldn't want them if they were too expensive, so they didn't let you follow. Yan Qingqing never let go of Han Qian's arm. The store manager behind him looked at the retreating figure, took out his mobile phone and made a call. Manager, I want to resign. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 98. Yan Qingqing was right. When she saw Yang Lan and Jijing, they were holding several LV bags with suits in their hands. Han Qian adjusted his mentality a little and whispered whether he could withdraw. Jijing took out the suit tag from the bag and shook it. No, eldest nephew. Han Qian took a deep breath and whispered into Yan Qingqing's ear. Deducted from my money. Okay, but you can only deduct half. Yan Qingqing understood a little bit about Han Qian's pride and bottom line from yesterday's warm words. She smiled and agreed to Han Qian. As for the deduction, it was up to her. Jijing proposed to eat hot pot because she was a little hungry. None of the three refused. Han Qian took the bags from several people. Jijing only bought a purple skirt. Yang Lan had more clothes, about 4 or 5 sets. Han Qian was not surprised at all. Until now, I have never seen Yang Lan wearing the same clothes to work. Everyone has their own hobbies. For example, Yan Qingqing likes short skirts, Jijing likes white clothes, little Yang Jia likes snacks, Qianwan likes to throw money into games, and Yang Lanzi just likes clothes, all kinds of clothes. Yang Lan, who is already in her 30s, walks with Jijing. Judging from her appearance, she looks more immature than Jijing. Yang Lan is very good at makeup and dressing up, but Aunt Ji is much worse in this regard. After walking through Dobo Sports, Jijing suddenly stopped and pulled Yang Lan to go inside. Yang Lan was very resistant, but she did not refuse. She just went in and sat on a chair to rest. Han Qian was very interested in sportswear. The feeling is also very good, and I also walked into the store. As soon as I walked in, the shopping guide came over to greet me. Sir, you can store your things here. No, Han Qian, please accompany Jijing to have a look. I don't like sportswear very much. Yang Lan stood up and took the bag from Han Qian's hand, then continued to sit down and rest. Yan Qingqing didn't have much interest in sportswear. She sat with Yang Lan and chatted wordlessly, mainly about what happened just now. Han Qian walked inside. After scanning around, he took a fancy to a set of light blue sportswear. When he stepped forward and reached out to touch it, he found Jijing appearing next to him. He went to touch the white sportswear next to the light blue. Han Qian glanced at Jijing, who smiled at Han Qian. Eldest nephew, it turns out that we two have the same aesthetic taste. And Ji, we have exceeded the safe distance. While talking, Han Qian took off the clothes to compare, while Jijing took the clothes to the fitting room. Han Qian asked softly if he could try it on. The clerk smiled and said yes. After putting on the clothes, Han Qian looked at the leather shoes on his feet were a weird match, but he could try them on anyway. Han Qian walked out of the dressing room, grabbed a pair of shoes of the right size and put them on. Wearing the light blue sportswear with white stripes made Han Qian look more childish and less gloomy. With the short haircut, he became very sunny. Looking at himself in the mirror, Han Qian was very satisfied and was ready to ask about the price. At that time, a woman appeared in the mirror. The white sportswear has light blue stripes and a white sports cap. The shoes on his feet are exactly the same as those Han Qian was holding. Han Qian looked at Jijing in the mirror. Aunt Ji's temperament had changed. She looked like a girl. Jijing stood next to Han Qian and looked in the mirror, looking left and right. After 2 minutes, Jijing was stunned when she looked at the two people in the mirror, and Han Qian was also stunned at this moment. The clothes seemed to belong to a couple. The shoes are exactly the same. The two of them were very close to each other, standing arm in front of the mirror. After a few seconds, the two of them turned around and ran to the fitting room at the same time. At this time, the store manager came over and said urgently, "Two customers, please wait a moment, please wait a moment." Han Qian and Jijing stopped at the same time, raised their fingers and pointed at their faces, asking if they were called. The store manager, a man in his 30s, stepped forward and smiled warmly. "Hello, hello, I am the store manager here. I was a little moved when I saw the appearance and temperament of the two of you there. Don't get me wrong, I have been selling clothes for 10 years, and I would like to see perfect clothes. Perfect match, but I didn't know the relationship between the two of you just now. I'm embarrassed to say it. You two are really discerning. The clothes you are wearing are from the couple series that I just brought over yesterday to make patterns. Since you two have already put them on, let's go ahead. Don't worry, if you don't mind, please allow me to ask the store clerk to take a few photos as feedback for us to send back to the headquarters. In return, anything you two can wear will be treated as a gift from our store. Is it good to watch? Okay. No. Not spending money on clothes? Han Qian, a miser, must agree. Jijing turned around and gritted her teeth, glaring at Han Qian and said angrily, Okay, how do you want Mr. Yan and me to explain? Han Qian tilted his head and said doubtfully, What's the explanation? What's the explanation for buying 2 pieces of clothes? With so many people here, she can still blame us for stealing clothes? I'm a manager. This photo is fine, but can you not show her face? Why can't I show my face? What are you afraid of? Shoot. Shoot now. Han Qian, don't regret it. What are you regretting? Aunt Ji, you have to think about it. We need to be very close to each other when filming a couple. 5 minutes later, the two stood in front of the camera, posing in various poses, but neither of them had close contact. The store manager's occupational disease seemed to have penetrated deep into his bones. The last move was to ask the boy to hold the girl's waist. The girl hugged her, and she crossed her legs and raised her head. The boy's forehead was closer to the girl's chin. Just now it was just some relatively simple movements, which Jijing could accept. Now this requires 2 people to have physical contact? Jijing said with a pale face. No, I can't do this. Han Qian. I really can't do it. Although Jijing didn't hate Han Qian, she still couldn't accept being in close contact with a man. Han Qian tilted his head and looked at Jijing, and then sighed. Oh well. Seeing that the two models were about to fly away, the store manager said quickly. You two, as long as the conditions you propose are reasonable, we will not refuse. In the future, you will be given a 30% discount on all purchases in the store. In addition, we will notify you of new products in the store, and you can enjoy free photos at any time. The right to take away the clothes. The store manager is not a fool. How much does it cost to find a model to take photos? Moreover, the figure and appearance of these two people are no worse than those of models. He is thinking more long-term. Han Qian was moved. Just now he took a look at the price of the clothes and shoes. The shoes were more than 2,000, and the clothes were around 2,000. He turned to look at Jijing with some excitement. His eyes were very pure, with a little pleading. His eyes made Jijing the slightest resistance in Jing's heart was eroded by maternal nature. Jijing blushed and punched Han Qian's peepa bone, saying angrily. Are you crazy, Scrooge? What kind of clothes do you need? I'll buy them for you. Han Qian scratched his head and smiled. It's not free. Aunt Ji, you haven't taken a photo for a long time, right? Han Qian really didn't want to give up, so Jijing took a deep breath. Okay. But if I encounter difficulties, you must help me, and don't think too much. As long as it doesn't violate the moral bottom line, I agree. Then come. After saying that, Jijing turned around and put her hands on Han Qian's shoulders. Han Qian put his hands around Jijing's waist and gently picked her up. The first feeling when he picked up Jijing was that it was light, very light, very light. Han Qian was so small. Vocal channel. Aunt Ji, you look quite fleshy, you are so light. Jijing's hands were holding Han Qian's shoulders. She was about to cry at this time. With a slight cry, she told the store manager to hurry up and pat her. She raised her head and forced a smile. With a little shyness, Han Qian's forehead was pressed against Jijing's. Quiet chin. The action is very ambiguous. Click. Click. After two shouts, Han Qian put down Jijing. Jijing turned around and ran to the fitting room. Han Qian smiled at the manager. Take. Han Qian didn't say another word. She saw Yan Qingqing and Yang Lan standing behind the manager. Yang Lan was smiling but not smiling, and Yan Qingqing's eyes were as cold as frost. In the end, the manager gave Han Qian and Jijing a pair of shoes respectively, and promised that the photos would only be used as feedback and would never be circulated. Han Qian did not speak. At this moment, Yan Qingqing had a convulsion out of nowhere and was torturing his waist with her hands. Jijing stood there with a confused face like a puppet, not knowing what she was thinking. Only Yang Lan was a normal person, she said with a smile. We are employees of the honor group, and the two people you photographed are our greatest contributors and operations managers of honor. If the photos are used for commercial purposes, we have the right to ask you for copyright fees. If the head office has this proposal, I will definitely come to discuss with you. This is my business card. As long as you come here from now on, all products will be 50% off. Yang Lan took the business card and left with a smile. Walking out of the mall, Han Qian was about to be strangled to death by Yan Qingqing. Jijing was still holding hands with Yang Lan, and she opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something to Yan Qingqing. Before she could speak, she suddenly felt Yang Lan pinching her. Squeezing her hand and looking up, Yang Lan made a silent gesture. Jijing understood and she was silent. This time it was Han Qian who was driving. In order to avoid Yan Qingqing's torture, he went all the way to the Wolo Manchu where he met Li Er last time and asked for a small box. At the dinner table, Yang Lan had been chatting with Han Qian. Jing lowered her head and didn't know what she was thinking. When the bottom of the pot was brought up, Yan Qingqing suddenly spoke. Jing, have you washed your hands? Jing's hand shook and her phone fell to the ground. She raised her head and glanced at Yan Qingqing, then lowered her head and whispered. No. In an instant, Yan Qingqing's face changed from stunned to nervous, and finally confused. At this moment, 2 feet stepped on Han Qian's feet. Han Qian, the miser and steely straight man, shouted. You too. Cough. Yang Yian's slight cough interrupted Han Qian's words, and Han Qian gritted his teeth in pain. You too, eat more. What a sin. Nothing to do? Isn't it just that I got 2 pieces of clothes for nothing? Are these 2 girls crazy? Jing was silent while Yan Qingqing put food into the hot pot. Han Qian held the newly bought shoes with his hands and felt distressed. Only Yang Lan was smiling. Try to add me to VX High 882224 and I will invite you into the group. In addition, everyone, please vote for your free recommendation vote. The monthly ticket is about to expire, so don't forget to vote. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 100. The atmosphere at the dinner table was still weird. Han Qian didn't quite understand what was going on. He just ate the meat seriously. He wasn't very interested in hot pot, but he didn't reject it either. At a square table, Yang Lan sits opposite Han Qian. This sister has a very soft and sweet personality, but Han Qian's throat hurts when she eats spicy food. On the contrary, Yan Qingqing doesn't like spicy food very much. Sugar is added to it. Jing didn't know what she was thinking about. She lowered her head and looked at the meat in the bowl in a daze. At this time, Yan Qingqing picked up an abalone and handed it to Han Qian. Before it fell on the plate, Jing suddenly spoke. He doesn't eat seafood. Yan Qingqing's chopsticks stopped in mid-air. She tilted her head and frowned at Jing, and laughed softly. Huh, how do you know he doesn't eat seafood? In this laughter, neither Han Qian nor Yang Lan heard the meaning of the joke. Instead, with a bit of teasing, Jing raised her head and glanced at Yan Qingqing, then lowered her head and replied weakly. I happened to hear what Vice President Wen said when Qianwan asked Han Qian for scallops and clams at the street stall yesterday. Ha, we have known each other for several years, but I have never heard of the living habits of a certain man that you, Miss Ji, are interested in. Yan Qingqing was aggressive, as if she wanted Jing to say something, but Jing changed her usual lively attitude and lowered her head to eat and ignored Yan Qingqing. At this time, Yang Lan spoke softly. Han Qian went to the operations department to help out a few days ago. Jing, are you thanking our general department for being responsible? Han Qian can't lend it out next time, and he will have to sign and charge. When he heard that he was rich, Han Qian's eyes lit up. As a result, he was beaten mercilessly by Yang Lan and told that he would not be given any money. After a hot pot meal, Aunt Ji, who was clamoring for hot pot, didn't eat much. She might as well have eaten the snacks she had when she came. Yang Lan looked at Jing, who was losing interest, and asked in a low voice if she felt unwell. Jing nodded hard. Now she feels very itchy and uncomfortable, and wants to go home and take a bath immediately. Han Qian is not a god, and it cannot be said that Jing can accept contact with the opposite sex just because he can accept it. Jing's face became more and more ugly, and finally stood up with a somewhat aggrieved tone and told Yang Lan and Yasha Empress to take a taxi back. She going home now. When going out, Yan Qingqing suddenly spoke. Have your parents called you recently? Jing's body trembled slightly. She turned around, bit her lip and shook her head. Yan Qingqing sighed and raised her forehead and waved to Ji Jing. Next time I call you, come to my office and I'll pick it up. Ji Jing trotted away from the hot pot restaurant. When she went downstairs to check out, she was told that the girl in a short skirt had already paid when she came. After going out, she sat in the driver's seat and lay on the steering wheel crying loudly. She seemed to be doing I did something wrong that I would never do in my life. Han Qian, who was eating on the second floor, played with the abalone on the plate with chopsticks. He had eaten this thing once, and it was not much different from chewing rubber. Han Qian didn't know that the abalone was not cooked the only time he ate. He didn't ask others, he didn't know that what he ate was half cooked. While playing with the abalone, Han Qian whispered doubtfully. Ching Ching, when you mentioned Aunt Ji's family, her reaction was a little weird. Is there something going on here? You are calling me Ching Ching, and I will put you in the hot pot, believe it or not. You care so much about your Aunt Ji, why don't you just ask yourself? Why are you asking me? What? It feels good to hold your Aunt Ji, right? I thought about it just after I left. Yan Qingqing replied angrily to Han Qian. Han Qian tilted his head and looked at Yan Qingqing, frowning. Are you addicted? We are not friends or allies. What are you thinking about? Ji Jing and I also want to save some money to buy clothes. Dirty. Dirty. A woman with a head full of obscenities, shame on you. Be with me. Puff. Yang Lan couldn't help laughing. Yan Qingqing stood up and went to serve the hot pot. Han Qian and Yang Lan stood up at the same time to stop the ant. Yan Qingqing snorted coldly. Han Qian stopped paying attention to the woman and whispered to Yang Lan asking about this. How much does a LV suit cost? Can this casual suit be worn to work? As a result, Yan Qingqing was furious again. You dress casually at work now. Do you still care about casual suits or formal suits? Han Qian, are you a bit pretentious? Let's go, Lan Lan. Take a bite. After work, Yang Lan was treated as a younger sister by Ji Jing and Yan Qingqing. That's right, it's my sister. She is older than Yan Qingqing and Ji Jing, but her personality is more immature and childish. Yan Qingqing and Yang Lan drove away in the same car. Han Qian waved to the two of them and told Yang Lan to send him a text message when he got home, so he stopped worrying. Yang Lan leaned on the car window and asked Han Qian jokingly. Not wanting to receive anything from Mr. Yan, Han Qian quickly shook his head. No. I don't want to. Driver, please be careful, this bitch eats children. The uncle driver smiled naively, and the car gradually moved away. Han Qian looked at the clothes in his hands, raised his head and looked at the sky. Why should he wear a new pair of underwear and socks with such good clothes? Then Han Qian went to buy a fried stew and 2 cups of milk tea. Hail a taxi. Master, Prince Xingjia's mansion. Today, a certain family in Xingjia Palace is still warm. Li Jinhe stared at his husband and daughter with a vigilant face, fearing that these 2 guys were cheating, and then carefully threw a card. A 3. 4 J's. Sitting in the next house, Wen Nuan finally found the opportunity to take revenge. He looked at Li Jinhe with only 1 card left in triumph. As a result, Lao Wen Chongrong calmly threw out 2 cards and said calmly. Wang Jia. Nuan was stunned for a moment. When he saw Lao Wen throw a 3, he threw the cards in his hand on the table, slapped the table and shouted. Old Wen. We are farmers, and my mother is a landlord. You will never think about being a farmer again in your life. I won't play with you anymore. Li Jinhe took out half a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and threw it to Lao Wen. Lao Wen felt like he had found a treasure, and Nuan said with disdain. It's really worthless. Li Jinhe chuckled, hugged Lao Wen's arm and said with a wicked smile. Who asked him to be my husband? Who asked me to have you? Are you envious? I. Go and wash the dishes. I'm willing to admit defeat. I. When Nuan was at a loss for words. After holding it for a long time, he couldn't find a reason to refute. He stared at Li Jinhe without getting up. He took out his mobile phone and called Han Qian. He opened his mouth and howled when he answered. Wow, Han Qian, your mother-in-law bullied me. Mother-in-law bullies Wen Nuan? Han Qian didn't react for a while and almost blurted out to ask about his mother-in-law. Fortunately, he held it back and whispered that he was already downstairs. After hanging up the phone, Nuan cleared away the gloom and looked at Li Jinhe arrogantly. Arrogance said. I have Han Qian. Li Jinhe looked at Wen Nuan with disdain, curled his lips and said something useless. Wen shouted loudly, I do, and within a few minutes, Han Qian came. When Wen opened the door, he looked aggrieved again, and complained pitifully about being beaten. Li Jinhe and Lao Wen squeezed him mercilessly. Han Qian laughed, raised the snack in his hand and handed it to Wen. Eating fried stew and drinking warm milk tea, Wen Nuan forgot that he was unhappy just now and sat cross-legged on the sofa with a silly smile. Wen just likes to eat these greasy and sticky things, stew mixed with sesame sauce. Han Qian, I don't like it, it's too boring. The other cup of milk tea is naturally for the mother-in-law. As for Lao Wen, he only drinks tea. Nuan asked vaguely while eating snacks. Were you buying clothes? Huh. Why is it the LV I hate the most? Han Qian, your aesthetics are getting worse and worse. Where did you get the money? I just found out that you changed clothes. Han Qian chuckled softly. You forget everything when you have something to eat? I talked about Tu Xiao's matter, and the company was very satisfied with the result, so they asked Sister Yang to choose some clothes for me as a reward, saying that I would see my identity change in the future. Tall people should not dress too casually. Didn't I buy you a set? Is Sister Yang that Yang Lan? She has bad taste. Han Qian smiled again. Wen Nuan put down the milk tea in his hand and took the bag. He took out his suit and discussed the advantages and disadvantages of LV with Li Jinhe. In short, there was nothing good in Wen's mouth. She thought that men should wear Gucci, with names like the styles are all for mature men, and LV is more for young people and casual. Lao Wen, who had been smiling all the time, caught the name mentioned in Han Qian's words. He poured Han Qian a cup of hot tea and chuckled softly. Why are you related to Tu Xiao from District 8? He is from a gangster background, and he cut his status in the city with a knife. Don't have contact with such people. Han Qian held the teacup in both hands and laughed softly. It's also for my own benefit. The construction of the Glory shopping mall is about to begin. Because of some relationships, I participated in the fight between Yan Qingqing and Gao Fulai. After telling Lao Wen the matter in great detail, Wen Shu frowned and asked. 12 million, there is not much left after peeling off the layers layer by layer. It's just that Tu Xiao's sudden transformation surprised me. There is nothing wrong with what you think. Tu Xiao really didn't dare to run away with the money. Glory, he's still a little bit behind. I'm just curious how many you cut down. Well, I gave Tu Xiao 8 million, and then I took back 130,000 from Tu Xiao's hand and kicked it into my own pocket. Puff. Lao Wen couldn't help but squirted all the tea on the tea table. Han Qian got up and walked to the kitchen to get a rag. With the familiarity of the road, Lao Wen reached out and took the rag from his son-in-law's hand and motioned for him to come. Han Qian sat down next to Nuan, and then Nuan abandoned Li Jinhe and started teasing Han Qian's face. I have acne. Lao Wen tilted his head and looked at his son-in-law who was being tortured by his daughter, and frowned. You mean you directly cut off Tu Xiao's 4 million profit, and then took 130,000 from his hand and mouth? Don't do this kind of thing next time. If you need money, tell Dad, It's only 100,000. Tu Xiao is such a dangerous person. Even if he chops you down, he will still live the same life tomorrow. It is his men who are in jail. Has he threatened you? Han Qian smiled and shook his head. No, we even had lunch together. It's the beginning of the month, monthly tickets are available. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 101. When she found out how he liked the son-in-law, who was courageous, talented, capable, and patient with his daughter. When she was squeezing Han Qian's pimples, something women seemed to like to do. Digging out 130,000 from the old gangster Tu Xiao. Even though I was given a car, it was enough to brag about for 10 days and a half. Who has provoked this old gangster all these years? Does Lin Men dare? Do you dare to perform well? This is not a matter of money, but Lao Wen is not afraid of this guy. Li Jinhe's family just restrained Tu Xiao. Lao Wen leaned on the sofa, crossed his legs, and winked at Han Qian. Han Qian took out a Li Jinhe, handed a cigarette and lighter to Lao Wen, and Li Jinhe immediately frowned. Since Han Qian gave them to him, he did not stop Lao Wen from committing suicide. Instead, he stretched out his hand and patted Nuan's shoulder, scolding. Xiao Qian has been tired for a day, so please stop teasing him. Xiao Qian, how do you feel about working at Glory now? Is there any trouble? When Nuan stopped teasing Han Qian's face and got up and went to her room. Han Qian smiled innocently at Li Jinhe. No, I haven't encountered any trouble. It's just that the general department where I am now is in trouble, because I got into 2 fights recently, and they said behind my back that I have violent tendencies, and then, basically every day there are people staring at me, worried that I will fight with others. When he said this, Han Qian lowered his head in embarrassment. As a result, Li Jinhe slapped Han Qian on the shoulder several times and laughed loudly. This is my son-in-law. He needs to be tougher outside. Don't be like your dad, who always thinks of taking a step back to open up the world. If you need to fight, fight. If something goes wrong, come back to mom. Mom will make things right for you. There are so many relatives in the family, it would be a waste if we don't use them. This slap is a compliment. Lao Wen frowned and looked at Li Jinhe and complained. In a harmonious society, why do we always fight and kill? What will happen if we fight? We must find a way to avoid future troubles. Li Jinhe turned around, pinched his waist and frowned. Then you were kicked out by Chang Xiang and expelled from your family to avoid future troubles? If a man doesn't have a tough attitude outside, then he's still a man? Xiao Qian, don't listen to your dad, he's pedantic. He's so pedantic. Han Qian, you are a smart boy. Don't listen to your mother's nonsense. Who can get beaten in vain these days? It's okay if you hit someone, but we are the ones who suffer the pain of being beaten. We will lose no matter how much money we give. We can't do anything unless we have to. Huh? What do you mean, Wenshu? Do you think I'm harming my precious son-in-law? It's not harmful, Jinhe. Times have changed. Fart, no matter how you change it, your fist will always be the biggest. Li Jinhe, who was born in the army, believed in using force to solve problems, while Wen Shi, as a scholar, believed that force was the most undesirable. Han Qian looked at his mother-in-law and father-in-law with curiosity. How did these two people get together? Han Qian still couldn't hold it back and asked in a low voice. Dad, Mom, did you introduce each other when you were young? Is there a matchmaker? When mentioning this matter, Wen Shi looked proud, glanced sideways at Li Jinhe from the corner of his eye, and said proudly. Do you still need to ask? My child, I remember that your father-in-law used to be very personable and could write well. I started doing business when I was in college. A love letter cost 1 yuan. $1. It was indeed not cheap more than 20 years ago. I heard an old man say that popsicles only cost 20 cents at that time. Han Qian remembered that when he was in elementary school, lunch boxes only cost 1 yuan a box. When Lao Wen went to college, it cost more than when he was a child. 10 years ago, $1 was so luxurious. Han Qian tilted his head and looked at his mother-in-law and whispered, "Mom, did Dad write you a love letter then?" "Huh? You kid, I already told you that your mother is pursuing me." "Mom, he's a bit arrogant. Don't worry about me. Just do it if you need to." Han Qian was holding the fire aside, and Li Jinhe narrowed his eyes and smiled at Han Qian. "Don't stir up trouble. At that time, things were quite rough between me and your dad. After all, he was the one I pursued. After all, it's not that easy to find someone who is easy to bully." While chatting, Wen Nuan came out. She was holding a facial mask in her hand. She exposed half of her body in the corridor and hooked her hand to Han Qian, signaling him to come over. Han Qian looked at the mask in her hand and shook his head. Han Qian said softly, wearing a pair of pajamas, "You still haven't changed your clothes? What time is it? You're not going home." "No reply, come here. I'll put a mask on you." Wen Nuan hooked his fingers at Han Qian, and the old monk Han Qian was still in meditation. At this time, Li Jinhe glanced at the clock and didn't expect that it was almost 11 o'clock. She stood up and yawned. She was also ready to rest and walk to Li Jinhe suddenly turned around and asked when Wen Nuan was next to him, "Xiao Qian, which room are you sleeping in? The guest room hasn't been cleaned for a long time." Nuan pushed Li Jinhe's back and spoke with a look of disgust. "Oh, you don't have to worry about it. He can just sleep with me." "Huh? Oh. Then I'll get you a quilt." Li Jinhe was slightly confused. She knew that there was a deal between Han Qian and Nuan's marriage. When she lived here before, Han Qian always slept in the guest room. At that time, Li Jinhe didn't know it and thought Han Qian was shy. Now he knows, but the result has changed. Not long after, when Han Qian was washing up and getting ready to rest, Nuan came in and walked towards Han Qian with a sinister smile on his face. Han Qian crossed his arms and kept retreating. When he had no way to retreat, he sneered. "Xiaoqianzi, just scream. No one will come to save you even if your throat is broken." The next second, Wen Nuan suddenly raised his legs, and put his slender legs on Han Qian's shoulders. His pajamas slid down his white and slender legs. "I've heard of Bidong, is this the legendary leg dong?" Under Han Qian's constant struggle, he failed. Looking at himself in the mirror, was this mask still a panda? Wen Nuan seems to be very satisfied with her masterpiece. Han Qian can't do anything about her temperament that comes out of her head every time. It's all a problem she's been pampered since she was a child. I waited in the bathroom for 10 minutes. After returning to the front, he lifted the quilt and got into bed. Anyway, it was not the first time that he slept with Nuan. Han Qian didn't feel much pressure. He patted the bed and shouted to Nuan. "Come, brother who sleeps next to me." Han Qian was lying inside, and when Nuan got under the quilt. Fortunately, there were 2 quilts, but it was still hot today. When Nuan was lying next to Han Qian in pajamas and scrolling through his phone. Han Qian didn't understand what this small square box was about. When I was getting ready to sleep, my arm was suddenly pulled by the warmth. 20 minutes later, Han Qian looked down at the warmth on his arm and whispered, "It's warm. Bah. Don't even think about it." "Han Qian, please keep your mind clear." "No. My hands are numb and your head is a little heavy."